am just reveling at the fact that I am so gorgeous. Getting to this beat, you guys. Like, so I want to call this segment Ness's HR Corner. Super excited about that, and want to talk about like why I'm starting this, doing this, because I've been literally sitting on this idea for a hot minute. Essentially, how do I marry my passion, makeup, and HR, human resources, for those that are asking about like what's that, and essentially how do you marry that? I'm like, you know what, I don't really have a structure for this and how it's supposed to look and fit into a box, so I'm just putting this out there. And I feel like because of the experiences that I've had, there are tons of things that I can share. And one of the things that I'm bringing to you today is CYA. You're wondering, what is that? Essentially, cover your beep ass. Anywho, let's get started, because I want to, first of all, I love this. I just want to revel in this a little bit, but also I'm gonna take this off too. I'm in my house right now, and you know, this is where I'm filming, and your girl is locked. Yes, I am a Black female working in corporate America in human resources, and I'm gonna give you guys a little bit of background, how I got started in HR, and then we'll get right into the topic. And my hope is to continue to have more segments for you guys on topics such as, you know, covering your butt in corporate America, specifically with HR. And, you know, why is HR such a taboo, you know, department? Like, we're here to help. We're nice people. Like, approach us. We want you to approach us. We're not the bad guys all the time. We're not the bad guys all the time. But let's get started. Story time. How did I get started in human resources? And so I'm excited to share this story with you guys. Hopefully I can put like little, you know, funny videos, music, whatever those things are called. Intro, outro, anywho. But I got my start in human resources 8 years ago this year. Your girl been 8 years in the game. 8 years ago, originally I am from Miami, Florida. I'm currently living in Nashville, Tennessee. I relocated here for work, but my career started in human resources 8 years ago, officially August of this year, but still nonetheless 8 years. And how I got started, I was graduating. It's kind of chilly in here, y'all. It's still winter. Well, it's spring, but it's still cold outside because it's Nashville, Tennessee. It's bipolar just like Miami, but anywho. I was graduating from the University of Central Florida. Woo, woo, go Knights, go Knights. And you know, they have literally like, you know, departments or workplaces come and kind of have a booth outside the campus, I guess, on specified days. And we would never really have, there was never really HR interpretation or representation, not interpretation, representation. And it was one of the departments that I was always curious about, but never have the opportunity to ask someone questions. And essentially, I'm sorry, I got distracted. Text message came through. But essentially, there was never really any human resources representation on campus. So, you know, you had a lot of clinical nursing and, you know, CNA and other, you know, departments like finance and whatnot, but never really HR. The only thing I remember being on campus at UCF in Orlando, Florida, was this one company, like the 2 years I was there, that came, and I just so happened to be, you know, walking the halls and saw that and questioned. And then HR, you really only heard of HR department having like 1 or 2 or at the most 3 people, you know, in human resources. But in any event, they didn't really have a lot of information, so I didn't really know what I was going to do after I graduated. Like, I know I wanted to be in healthcare. I know I wanted to be in administration. However, it was a how am I going to get there kind of thing. Like, where do I start? And so essentially, I ended up graduating with my degree in health services administration and got my minor in health information management, because that's the trajectory that I wanted to go on, health information management. I knew I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't want to do any clinical, like blood and all that. Made me sick. Like, you're sick, I'm sick. I wouldn't be a good nurse. I'd be a great nurse, but I just don't like sick, nasty things like fluids, bodily fluids, like, but could have been a doctor, but again, not my forte. Didn't want to do that. So again, I was finding myself asking that question, like, how do I be in healthcare, but also how do I, you know, essentially marry the two and then be in it long term. So with that being said, I graduated. I honestly didn't know what I was going to do. Moved back home with no job prospects, whoop-de-whoop-whoop-whoop, and essentially became everybody's chauffeur. I was driving my mom, I was driving my sister, I was driving whoever I needed to drive to, and I was picking them up from work. And I'll never forget, so shout out to my twin, Melissa. I'll put a picture up here for you, girl, who was working at Aventura Hospital at the time, and called me up after I dropped her off one morning and said, hey, like, they're having a career fair, get your butt here now. So your girl got dressed, looked nice, you know, went in, and I remember walking up to, at the time I didn't know what her title was, but she ended up being the recruiter, and giving my elevator pitch. You know, and she had the worst attitude on planet Earth. It's as if like she was like, ugh, why are you here? Kind of thing. And I'm like, I just kept rambling on, telling her about myself and, you know, what I can do. And, you know, I'm excited and to hear about what the positions that they have available and so forth. And I'll never forget this tall, skinny white lady. Although I did not see her standing where she was standing at the time, but she was very close. She kind of walked over and told me, hey, you know, I'd really like to talk to you. If you don't mind, if you could have a seat, I'll be right with you. And went and sat down and learned that the career fair that I thought was just kind of a general career fair was actually for nurses. My heart sank. My heart sank because I'm like, well, I'm not a nurse. I decided that a long time ago, like that was not for me. So she came and sat down. Her name is Jill. And she ended up being my boss because Jill sat down and spoke to me and said that she had an opportunity for me in human resources. Look at that divine order, Jesus. Yes. And, you know, she would love for me to come back to interview, but she has a role. But she would love my information and she'll set something up. And that's exactly what happened. She set something up. I came in, I interviewed, and it was only a small time frame. But that's how I got my start in HR. I started as a human resources assistant, and I was only there for 3 months because they were looking for a manager. And when they found her at the time, you know, they no longer needed me. So because I was doing such a great job, my boss, Jill, secured another spot for me working at the cancer center as a unit secretary. I did that for a couple of months and then went and worked as a registrar in the emergency room and really learned that was not for me, you guys. Like, it was very traumatic. It was very real because it's the emergency room. So I saw a lot of things, heard a lot of things, and not for me. And I then learned that the HR specialist that was there at the time, I met her, we became friends. Hey T, hey girl. And she was relocating, and I jumped at the opportunity to interview for that role, and that's how I officially got my start in HR as the HR specialist out in Aventura. Worked there for about 3 years, moved on to another company in Sunrise, and found myself wanting more of a challenge, and then found myself relocating to Nashville. And here I am, and ooh, that's a whole nother story for another day. But in any event, that's how I got my start in human resources, and I have been so blessed and fortunate to have had leaders, challenging but rewarding, much more so rewarding than challenging, because I learned a lot. And even in the midst of things, you guys, I learned a lot. Which brings me to my segment today for you guys on dun dun dun, covering your butt, okay, in the workplace. And as an HR leader, I think it's important for individuals who their passion may be to work in human resources or not work in human resources. But I think, the message across the board is there's email for a reason, and there's reasons why you should take the necessary steps to ensure your safety in the workplace, professionally speaking. Not violence or anything like that, because you'll come across leaders, and we're all different. We all have different personalities. We all come from different backgrounds, but I call this emails, the CYA edition in HR. I have 3 points that I'm going to make, and I hope you find this beneficial to you. I hope you ask me questions. Please ask me questions. I would love to interact and get those questions answered for you. But these are coming from like my personal experiences, even up until like a couple of days ago. These are lessons that I've had to learn the hard way, and I really want to put it out there that it is important for you to protect yourself. Yes, you have lawsuits. Yes, you have your ethics and compliance line. And it could just be a simple conversation with your leader or your colleague or whomever. But you never want to find yourself in a predicament where you do not have proof to show and prove that, hey, I'm innocent in this, or I did what was asked of me. And if that was not the perception, or if that was not the directive, then it should have been explicitly explained. But again, folks will try to throw you under the bus. Folks will try to discredit you, and individuals will try to lie, essentially. And these are, I feel, steps that you can take, easy steps that you can take to protect yourself. One being copying yourself on emails. Now, essentially the pertinent ones. Do you want to bog down your Outlook box or whatever platform you use in your workplace? Probably not. And an alternative to that could very well be asking for more storage space. However, I feel that there are certain tasks and items or projects that you're working on where, whether you're remote or you work in the office or you're working with colleagues that are working with remote, or you have different site facilities that are in different states, that it's imperative to, kind of put yourself on the communication going back and forth. So an example that I have for you is a recent one. I oversaw an EEOC charge that my company has, or was issued, I should say, and contacting the investigator I found myself having to call multiple times. I was successful the initial time when I reached out to him, but I was not successful in reaching out and him returning my calls. So, I started, every time I called him and left a voicemail, I followed up with an email. And since I was required to provide updates to my leadership team, I copied myself on those emails because, you never wanted to come out that you did not complete a task or you did not reach out, or you never wanted to you never want to find yourself having to explain why you didn't do something that was asked of you. So if you reached out, I always say document the date, document the time that you call the individual, and document whether or not you left a voicemail. And a lot of the times people's voicemails aren't set up. If you're calling a cell phone or the mailbox is full, document that, because if you ever are called or questioned, you have that documented. And one of my employees actually put me on to Microsoft Onenote. Now, I know most people will be like, yeah, I knew about that, but your girl did not, okay? I was not maximizing the software and material that was provided to me. And I love Microsoft OneNote. I'm not plugging this in. I'm not getting paid to say this or anything like that, but it has tabs. So I can, put tabs or create tabs for each task or item that I'm working on, specifically if it's a project. And this EEOC charge that I received and was tasked to respond to, I had a whole list of notes. And the fun thing about that is you're able to date it, you're able to timestamp it, you're able to add notes, you're able to add emails, all within one document. And I made sure with my IT department that was backed up. So if ever anything goes down, it's on the cloud. So I think it's pertinent to CC yourself on emails when you're responding to tasks or, correspondences that you feel may in the long run be questioned or be brought up if you completed the task or not, specifically pertinent ones. Now, you don't necessarily have to CC yourself on every communication, but if CCing is not your thing, you can blind copy, but just make sure you have a record of you completing your tasks, okay? So, second bullet point for emails and the CYA edition is recap an email, sending recaps via email. That's what I'm gonna call it. Recaps via email. And the reason why I say this is because you don't want to misconstrue what you and your leader have discussed or you and your colleague have discussed. So any discussion that has taken place, you want to go back and you want to recap everything that was said, whether you took notes or whatever the case may be. This could be a conversation between you and your leader. This can be a conversation between you and a colleague or a director that for a department that you're overseeing. You always want to recap that conversation, because in the event you misheard or misunderstood, it gives that person an opportunity to say, yes, this is what we talked about. Thank you so much for sending that email. Or no, that's not what I necessarily meant. Let's have another discussion about this. Specifically, for my individuals out in the work field that have one-on-ones with their managers. A lot of the times there's a lot of things that gets discussed. There's a lot of things that, you don't have an opportunity to discuss. You want to include all of that in your recap email. Hey, I really appreciated our one-on-one, and I just want to, recap. I would like to recap, what we discussed, and this is the items that we tabled. This is the items that I've made you aware that I'm working on, and this is what you said that you would take lead on, and so forth. So that way you have it documented. You just want to have it documented. So that way there's no misunderstanding on either side. And if there is, it gives you both an opportunity to clear the air. Again, this is not a if this then that, let me watch my back, but it just ensures that everyone's on the same page. So, with that being said, my third point is to take notes. When you take notes, it could be via, the little scribble pads that you do on the iPad that it kind of translate to text. You can save that. You can, like I said, I mentioned earlier, using Microsoft Onenote. It has tabs. You can date stamp, you can record, you can add emails, you can add files. I'm sure there's a plethora of other things that you can do within that application. But take notes. Take really good notes. And even if you're not sending an email or a recap, or it doesn't require you to do that, still notate everything, every conversation that you have with your leader, with your colleagues, specifically if it's task oriented, specifically if it's project oriented, because it gives you an opportunity to go back to see what the discussions were, what was the topics, specifically in meetings. What were the takeaways? What did you take away? What issues did you have that weren't addressed at the meeting, but you would like to, address at a later time with your leadership team? So take notes, take really good notes. I know a lot of the times people forget to write dates, write names, write, times and what was discussed. But if you have those bullet points, you can always go back and refer to your notes in the event, your question or asked if something was done. And if it was, when was it done? Who did you speak to, etc. And that way, and the example that I would like to use for that is, with IT. You have an issue with a software or an application or your computer or your hardware, whatever the case is, IT creates what's called tickets, right? Think of taking notes as like your ticket item. They're just documenting what you reported, what the issue was, and essentially when they close out that ticket, what resolved. Now, does it take you time on the front end to do all of that? Yeah. And my recommendation would be, if you don't want to take notes, if you don't want to send recap emails, and you don't want to, CC yourself on communication, take voice memo notes. You guys, iPhone. Everyone has a phone. Android. I'm not sure what Android's users use, but I'm team iPhone all the way. But I would definitely use the voice memo note that you have on your phone. Use the apps that are available to you to take notes and to just kind of register. Even and I can only speak for Apple. The note application, now you're able to add bullet points and bold and italicize things and create little, graphs and what have you. Utilize that if you're more tech savvy. You don't have to do it like I'm telling you to do it. My takeaway from this is what I want you guys to essentially walk away with is, don't always take people's word for their word, or don't always take people at their word, because we're all human. We all make mistakes and nobody's perfect. However, when it comes to your job and your position, you want to be the best employee, and you want to be, you want to be the best employee ever. But also you want to show proof that, hey, you've asked me to do something, I'm doing it. Here's why. Or if something's ever questioned, if your integrity is ever questioned, or if your work ethic is ever questioned, you have a reference point to go back to. And it also leads to, ethics and compliance. What we hear all the time is, did you document that? Did you speak to anyone about this issue if it ever arises? And the first thing HR 101 is, did you document it? When did you speak to this individual? When was his task assigned? And did you complete it in a timely fashion? And was it communicated? So these are all measures I feel that you can take to definitely, secure yourself in your role, but also your leadership team whenever you're asked for or asked about a task or a project that you've worked on or have worked on, you can say yes. And here's all that I did. When we had a meeting about this specific task or individual or an issue, these were the notes that we took, and we didn't discuss anything that you're saying that we discussed. And I have the notes here. So, it's just a measure of protection for yourself, but also peace of mind. I can tell you right now, my personal experience with that is I, had a day off and essentially was told that I failed to complete a task that I had been assigned. Well, it was never assigned. And unfortunately, some individuals were copied on that email. Some pretty important people were copied on that email. I had an opportunity to go back and show, like, hey, here's what we talked about. That was not a part of it. So can you help me understand where the miscommunication was? Maybe I missed something and I didn't. Boop. But but I feel that it is necessary to definitely CYA, especially in the workplace, especially in the times that we, work and we're working from home amidst all this, national crisis that we're having with the COVID-19 virus that's going around. It's becoming more prevalent, and now more than ever, you're really going to have to speak to, okay, what were you doing at this time, that time, and you may be questioned. I tried to reach you at this point in time and you didn't respond. Why is that? What are you doing with your time? So I think, in times like this, I think having these discussions definitely helps. So please let me know in the comments your questions, your experiences, anything that you want to share. Let's continue this discussion. I really want to hear your thoughts. I really want to hear your experiences, and did you find this video helpful? I know I have, and I've definitely lived it and experienced it, which is why I'm able to speak to it. But I really want to hear your thoughts. So please like, comment, and I can't speak, y'all. Subscribe to my channel. I'm definitely going to be posting up this look. I'm definitely going to post up this look, but also, I definitely would like to do more. Bye, guys. I appreciate you coming to Vanessa's Corner. Bye.